Hello, welcome to Laurent Collective.
Hello, hello.
And we're just going to give you a heads up right now. Pat has a bit of a cough, and so...
Yeah, sorry about this. If I cough a little bit, I apologize. I will try to stay away from the microphone as much as I can.
And me too, because I don't want it. Today, we thought we would talk about something that we saw a YouTube thing that we'll go into in a little bit, and it had us thinking, and that is, how do we model for our kids a healthy work life? I'm not saying the word balance because we've had a conversation about that before. We don't believe that there is such a thing as balance because in different seasons of life, you are going to have to maybe focus on work more during that season or focus on your family or your health or name it. There will always be something that will have more of a focus. So the idea of balance, it's never going to be perfectly balanced. However, it can be healthy. And so that's what we thought we would chat about today. Because, we're unique, yes, that we have lots, maybe we're not that unique. A lot of people have this. Most people have lots going on in their life. Whether you work a quote unquote traditional job or you have your own thing, your own business and stuff. If you do have children, you most likely have 50 different things going on and keeping track of things that they're doing. You also have your own stuff that you're trying to take care of and things that are your creative outlets and all of that. So we have been thinking a lot about not only like how we model it, but having other people that they see model it. And that's where it's actually really hard. Because I don't know if, depending on the ages of your kids, our kids are now at the age where they watch a lot of YouTubers.
That's like all they watch. They would probably rather watch YouTube than like a traditional like show or something.
Yeah.
Like on Netflix or...
And it ranges from, there's the like gamers that they watch. But then there's like, they watch a lot of artists. So Zane watches a lot of music artists and how they create and stuff like that, or do fun and different things. Jude and Veda watch a lot of artists that do everything from murals to help me here.
They just do like different anything and any like art trends that are out there that people
sculptures, creating cities of things. All
like little
kind of
like
stuff.
Dioramas or
painting little characters and doing like 3D printing, all this stuff. They love watching that stuff. And then there also are some things that they love watching that are like a combination of those things. And we'll probably say a couple YouTubers' names here that your kids may be watching too. And with that, it had us thinking, as we were talking to our kids, of most of those people, they don't understand. It looks like to them, like, oh, this is easy. They just create these videos and stuff. And often, especially I think on the artist ones, they often will say, I've spent X amount of hours doing this. And when the kids hear that, they're like, did he just say 48 hours, like creating this thing? Because I think they see it because it's all edited together. In their heads, they think, oh, they did that in 2 hours. Which has also been a frustration when they've actually tried to recreate something. They realize it doesn't happen in 2 hours. And so they see that. And then sometimes somebody will say in a video, this took this many days, or this was over 3 months that I recorded this, and that kind of thing. And again, I think that's showing them most stuff that they see in the world takes way more time than they think it does, and takes way more work and way more effort. And they even, I think the same goes, for you, if you're like Pat's working on a book project right now. And I think every time that they look over your shoulders and see it, they say comments like, you're still on that book.
Yeah, that's true.
You haven't started the next one?
Thanks for the support, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or, often Mondays, I'm pretty structured in some things I do. And on Mondays I work on finances in our business. And when Jude will ask us at the end of the day what I worked on, and I said finances, he's like, you have to do that every week. So there are just things that sometimes, and if you have more of when I say traditional job, I mean like maybe you go to work or you work from home possibly, and you work you're not the employer, you're an employee. I think it's good to share with your kids too, like what does that look like in a day? They may glaze over and get bored, but especially as they get older, like Zane is 16, I think it's important for him to understand. And he did some work for us, had a week where he did some work for us, and he was like, wow, some of this is really boring and some of this is really fun. And we were like, yep.
Yeah, definitely.
That is what it is like. I think the easiest thing for so many of us to do, whether you are able to actually physically leave your work and come home, or you are like us and you have your own business, or you're a stay-at-home mom, or whatever it may be. I think it's showing them that having time away from that is so important. And it's hard because we are so connected with our phone and email and everything now. It's so easy to let all of that seep into all of the areas. You know, even if it's like volunteering your time and stuff like that, that can seep into everything as well, of like just even communications and that type of thing. And so what sparked this in us and thinking about it was the kids, somebody that they follow, and I'm going, depending on what age your kids are, they've probably heard of him too.
Oh, yeah.
His name is Dan TDM. Is what his YouTube name is. I don't know. He has like 26 million followers or something crazy like that. I don't even know
anymore.
So. It's a lot. And he's like, we've always let our kids watch his videos because like he doesn't cuss or anything like that. Like they're kid friendly. And so he has recently had his second kid, and he created this video that you can look up on YouTube that basically says like, am I retiring from YouTube? And so our kids were watching because he hasn't had a video up for a while because he's been with his second child and his family. And it was all about, like, the beginning is all about, like, you know, should I create more YouTube videos? Should I retire? You know, was I choosing to spend time with my kids to go take them to see Santa, or did I make a YouTube video? And that kind of thing. And so I think it was our kids watched it, and then we had a conversation with them afterwards to say, like, oh, yes, that's exactly what it's like, you guys. You have to make decisions sometimes and things. Well, all the time and things.
I mean, because he would put out content constantly, easily on a daily basis. And so I think, again, that kind of brought up some things of what type of content is he making? Does he need to start making more content that is meaningful to him and meaningful to his audience, rather than just posting something every day? And then how does that affect his family and all that kind of stuff? So I think it was a really unique video that we were like, wow, like in some ways that is courageous. I think in some ways for somebody like that, who people are expecting to receive content from them on a daily, sometimes hourly basis, to be like, you know, I'm choosing to have a better balance because I want to be able to choose to take my kids to Santa rather than feeling the pressure of making a video so you guys can watch something. Where actually what I think he even like reached out to his audience, and basically most of his audience was like, no, like we just want really good quality content from you. Like it doesn't
fewer
have
videos,
to be,
higher quality.
Yeah, fewer videos, higher quality, and that's how we want to continue to engage with you. So I think it's a reminder to sometimes we get really caught up in, I don't know, the narrative that you have to be constant in order to be relevant for people.
And that's, I think that goes in your job. Like, if you have a traditional thing, you think if I am, now I will say it's better in Europe than it is in the United States, but like if I don't answer this email at 9 p.m., like I'm not going to be relevant to my boss or something like that. Or if on the weekend I'm having time with my child and my phone's going off and I'm not responding to that email. And so it seeps into, like, no matter what you do in your life, it seeps into all of that. Or, I mean, it can even go into like how much stuff we sign up our kids for and stuff like that too. Of like, what are we showing them as far as like what health looks like, and trying to have time and like having some downtime built in, versus it's like you're going from this activity to that activity to that activity. Like we have one night where we pick Veda up from one club and we take her to swimming right after. She has maybe an hour in between, and I actually hate that. It's how the schedule worked out this time. It is not our norm. And you know,
she's exhausted on this,
and she is. She comes home
and she knows it.
Yeah. So we tested it out this term. We will not be doing that after they are done with this term. And so it's just things like that. It's paying attention to your own self and saying to your kids, like, you know, this is what it looks like for me to shut off, because that looks different for all of us. And we've talked about that before, about what rest looks like. You know, our kids will often say things to me of like, it's a Saturday, why are you doing yoga? And that kind of thing. And I'll say, this is restful to me. This kind of sets me into a restful mode if we're having a restful day, or even if we're having a busy day, I may do it too. And that kind of thing. And so it's, again, what does health look like in that? And I think because our kids are growing up in a different world, at least than we did, depending, those of you that are watching and what age you are and stuff, like, we didn't have the constant content like they have. And we are very strict on our kids. Very strict is maybe strict on our kids.
We try to help them set healthy boundaries.
Yeah, of what kind of technology they're on and when. We monitor what they're on. None of our kids do social media yet. We're starting to have conversations with our 16-year-old if he wants to venture into it and what that looks like and stuff. But even with that, they still see people creating stuff all the time. And then whether they choose to be somebody who's doing that later in life of like creating things, or I hope they're always creating something, or they're in more of a traditional job, I think that idea of like hustle and stuff like that is just out there, and they see that and they think like that's what I have to do to quote unquote be successful in life, and that kind of stuff. And so it's we all have been there, right? There's guarantee that all of us have been in a place where we have burnt ourselves out completely because we are trying to do too much all at once, and it's just not possible. And I think as we prepare to launch one of our children, which I can't even think about, he's got about 2 more years before university if he still decides to go to university. I think it's a lot of trying to show him this stuff and talk to him about it, because there's, even in school, like he is in the year right now where he takes these things called GCSEs. We should do a podcast on that because we get some every time I say that, people are like, what? I don't know. There's no
SATs.
Think that, but not, because it's so different. Again, we'll do a podcast on that, but it's an intense year, and there's a lot of pressure on these exams, and it determines what he goes on to next for the next 2 years and stuff like that. And so even at school, like, I think they would prefer that he'd be studying for 5 hours a night, and sure, maybe he could, but we're trying to say, like, come home from school and have a break, rest for a little bit, and then jump back into studying. You can't just keep going. You've got to take a moment and rest. And we do try to make sure on the weekend he does take 1 day off from studying and that kind of thing.
It won't. This is a season.
And we do explain that to him. Like,
it's
that's
not always
important
going to be like
too.
this. And again, it's that's part of that reminder of, there are seasons where certain things come to the surface, and that's why we talk about that. There's no balance in it. It's like sometimes one thing is more of a priority than the other, and so how do you do that well? And so he's in a season where revising and studying a lot is the season that he's in. He's not. I mean, they're learning newer things, but it's not a lot. It's really diving into what they've learned up to this point in their school career, in a sense.
Yeah.
And so, but it's not always going to be like this. And so I think that's a reminder for him that we try to continue to have conversation with him about it, because right now for him it feels like this is awful. I don't want to be doing this all the time. But again, we're reminding him, trying to, the best is you have a couple more months of this, and then you have a really big break, and then things change. And so, and I think one of the things in it right now is, for him, we're trying to walk with him in a sense of, how do you do this well and not burn yourself out, right? And that's what you were just saying, like, come home, have a little rest, kind of, decompress a little bit, and then jump back into it. So I think that's the other thing is we're trying to make sure in those busy seasons, in those intense seasons, how do we help our kids prepare for those things and walk in those seasons.
I think, again, it's going, because your children are going to be uniquely made in the way that they do rest, the way that they do things. If they're neurodivergent, things like that, more different things are going to be different for them as well. And so for us, I think it's understanding that and knowing, Zane likes to go on walks and listen to music and stuff like that, and that is one of his ways of like kind of like just, you know, like I said, for our kids see me doing yoga, but that may not be for them what would be calming and restful to them. And so that is something that we're trying to show all the different things that we do, and saying saying like, here are some different things that we do, and here are the ways that we in seasons where it is intense, work-wise or life-wise or whatever it may be, these are the different skills that we pull from, and these are the different things that we do. What that looks like is obviously living it and showing it to them, but it's also a lot of conversations. And kids don't want to talk about this stuff. They could care less. I mean, I think that as they get older, I mean, Zane does want to talk about it more, but it's more of like, how do you put it into everyday conversation? And so I think we've talked about before that we, you know, for one of our children, they really need to understand what's going on during the week. And so we have like a whiteboard that we have our schedule, if you will, our schedule that would affect them. Yeah. We don't put in like what we're doing for work every day and stuff like that, but we do that. And then some weeks they'll say, oh my gosh, we have so much going on, or this weekend we have so much going on. And we'll say, yes, but we know that and we solved it. And so next week we've made it so that it's not like that. That's coming. And so that's like a quick like conversation, and why do we do that, and that kind of thing. It may be, you know, we've learned a lesson with the thing with Veda of like having too much packed into one night is a lot for her. It's a lot for our family. It affects everyone else because dinner is at a weird time. I mean, all these things. And we've talked about that to everyone in our family. Like, okay, we made a commitment and we're living out this commitment. We paid for these lessons, that kind of thing, but we are going to make a change because you sometimes do these things and then you learn, and it is for a very, very small season, and that kind of thing. And so it's a lot of, there's no like, we don't sit down with our 8-year-old girl and say, what do you know, that kind, I mean, some kids might want to do that, but our kids in general, it's more, how do we, live out the thing? How do we live out the things? And then how do we, have like ways to like slip into the conversation, and that
in some ways it's also paying attention to the things that the content and the different things that they're taking in, and again finding that example of Dan TDM's video and like having a conversation about that, because they love him and they love what he does, and so now like because of what he said, I think that opens up the conversation. So we're entering into our kids' world, and then by doing that, then we can have that extra conversation with them because of the thing that they love and they love to watch.
Yeah. Because sometimes they hear it, right? All of us know this. They hear it from somebody else besides you as the parent. They're like, oh, which is always very frustrating. But that's just how it is. I remember doing that with my parents and stuff like that too. And so it was fun when that video was playing. It was playing on our TV, and I think we were getting breakfast ready or something like that as they were watching it. And both Pat and I are like, well done, Dan. And the kids were like, that really makes a lot of sense. And Pat and I were kind of rolling our eyes at each other like, we talk about this all the time, but whatever.
Which, you know, then on the other side of it, you know, we were watching one of their favorite YouTubers, and in his office, he has a bed and a shower and all that kind of stuff. And so again, that's another conversation. You know, do you guys think that's healthy? Do you think that makes sense? You know, so again, it's I love getting into their world and then using the things that they love, that they're passionate about, all that kind of stuff, to have those types of conversations.
And so that's the thing to do, is like find ways to have conversations of things that they really like and that they enjoy, and then talk about what we think that person's like work life is like, what their home life might be like, that kind of thing. Help them understand, do some research if there is something they watch, or even movies and stuff like that. Our kids are always fascinated about how much time something actually does take to create, because they're seeing the immediate thing that has been put together, edited. They have no clue and don't understand at all of all of that type of thing. But as they learn that, they realize, oh, and so I think that helps them also in that immediate satisfaction thing that seems to be out there so much right now, like the immediate satisfaction of having something done or being at this level in a career or that kind of thing. Them understanding those things take time. And also them seeing us mess it up, because we don't get it perfectly. We often will schedule too much sometimes, and then they're like, they will say back to us, this one is when I think we realize they are maybe listening, is they will say, did you schedule too much this week? Was that too much to do in one day, Mom? Or, you know,
which honestly,
things like that.
Like for me right now, like because I have a little bit of a cough and things like that, I think I had scheduled too much. I think I pushed myself too much last week. And so I think thinking about in that sense, like, it's affecting my health. Like, and they can see that, and so I can talk to them about that. So
yeah. So again, it's not being perfect in it at all. There's no way you can be, but it's having the open conversation with them and just living it, and then watch others around you that they know, and like if you know anything about them, to show other examples. And the reason why I think it's important as they're growing up is because they are at each stage of their life, like we said, like with Zane right now with studying, and then he's going on to this and university and stuff like that. It's preparing them, hopefully. Again, it's not going to be perfect. Yeah. They're going to learn their own lessons, but hopefully we can be there to support them and talk to them through it. So we'd love to hear from you guys, like because we are always looking for examples of this too. What are the things that you show and talk to your kids about of how to have a healthy work life? Or what
it doesn't necessarily even have to be work, you know?
No, it could be, I say work life because a lot of people will enter into some kind of career at some point, but when also I think school is viewed as work a lot, or if they go on to university, that is viewed as work. Even how moms, if you're a stay-at-home mom, how you do find rest in that, or dads, exactly. I shouldn't forget stay-at-home dads. How do you find rest in that as well? Because that is the hours in that job are ridiculous. And so what does that look like as well? But we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. We can always do a podcast that shares some of your thoughts on this too. And you can always find everything at LaurentCollectiveLearning.com. Do I have to say .com? I think I have to say .com still. And we will I'll respond to you too if you reach out to us about things as well. So, we will talk to you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.